Sometimes you need to confront your past head on in order to move forward. The Night House was directed by David Bruckner, who directed The Signal, The Ritual, and the VHS tape Amateur Night. Written by Ben Collins and Luke Piotrowski, who wrote Super Dark Times. Pretty certain I butchered Luke's last name. I do apologize for that. This stars Rebecca Hall, Sarah Goldberg, Vonda Curtis Hall, and Evan Johihet. I'm pretty certain I totally butchered that last name. I'm not too good with foreign last names, or at least foreign sounding last names, as you can tell. And this centers around Rebecca Hall's character of Beth, who's a widow dealing with the recent loss of her husband Owen, played by Evan. And I'll get into spoilers a little bit later in case you are like me and maybe just saw the trailer or haven't seen anything about this. Basically, she's dealing with loss, and after knowing somebody for so many years, obviously that is going to weigh on somebody whenever you lose a spouse. You know, you have a circle of friends, and you may have family, and you may have a whole bunch of people, but when you have somebody that is the center of your universe for so long, and suddenly they're not there, you don't know what to do. You feel just totally lost. Like, what could I have done, like, to change anything? Is there anything I could have done? Like, should I have looked for any signs of, anything could have happened? Like, what in the world was going on here? Like, why did this happen to me? Why did this happen to somebody that I cared about? And it's a burden that could be like carrying a bag of rocks and everything. And some people handle it by drinking, some people handle it by using snark, some people handle it by hanging out with friends and just sharing jokes and everything, and just basically not giving a shit because they are very mad at the world for taking somebody they love. And Beth, she does all this and then some, and Rebecca Hall plays her beautifully. I've loved Rebecca Hall since The Awakening. She's goddamn amazing, and she's got a wide range as an actress. I love her in any dramas, art house, horror, suspense, whatever it is. She's fucking terrific. And again, ever since The Awakening and, other movies I've seen her in, I'm always locked in whenever she's there. I fucking love Rebecca Hall. When I saw she was in this, I absolutely needed to just sit down and watch it with one of my best friends. And as Beth discovers a little bit more about this stuff that's going on, she talks to her friends. Like, there's this neighbor, Mel, played by Vonda Curtis Hall, who has known them for a while and is worried about her as any friend would be. And then her friend Claire, played by Sarah Goldberg, who has her own family but loves Beth and wants to see Beth do well. She understands, obviously, that this loss has hurt her, but she wants to make sure she's going to be okay. Beth naturally starts going down a rabbit hole here because weird things start happening because it's in the immediate aftermath of this loss happening. She is a teacher, and the school year has ended, and she's doing her stuff and everything, and then she's going to look to maybe sell the house, but she's fixing stuff up and everything, going through his effects, going through a whole bunch of stuff, and then as things go on, weird things start happening. The stereo starts playing at night, starts playing particular songs, and then there's there's like weird bumps in the night. There's these weird, these weird shadows and everything, and this feeling that she's being watched, and she's wondering, could it all be in her head? Could there actually be something around? Could it be a demonic presence? Could it be her husband trying to contact her and warn her? Could her friends be right? And could this all just be her the grief manifesting in her doing what she can to basically cope with the loss, but not in a healthy way? And all these things are visited really well. And I have to once again mention Rebecca Hall, fucking tremendous, fucking phenomenal in this. Like, I absolutely loved her role in this. She anchors this. Now, not that the rest of the cast is bad. This is a small cast movie. I mean, outside of the four that I mentioned, there aren't a lot of other people that really get a ton of time, with the exception of one character, Madeline. And other than that, everybody else is just kind of a bit part. And that's not the worst thing in the world, because then if you have the strength of particular performances, you can, work on that for a while. The best way I can describe this movie is more art house horror with some pseudo supernatural elements without giving too much away, because obviously in a way of dealing with grief, you have to see, is it all in her head? Is all this? Like, what could it possibly be? I will say that they kept it at least, I don't want to say hidden in a bad way, but they kept, the truth of this whole thing hidden for a bit as to why things were happening the way they were. And once there's kind of one, thing that gets thrown out a little bit by Beth sometime into the movie. We're like, okay, now I kind of see where it's going, but oh, they did it this way. It sort of reminds me of a Netflix original, His House, which kind of dealt with, stuff like that in a bit in its own way. But that one was much more, that one had a little bit more supernatural stuff with it, but did deal with loss and grief and this kind of stuff, and had kind of more of the racial undertones. If you've seen His House, you know what I'm talking about. This is better. I gotta admit, I was not a fan of The Signal, 2007 movie, and I was not a fan of The Ritual, even though I recognize The Ritual as atmospheric. But the VHS tape Amateur Night that David Bruckner did, that thing still freaking haunts me. That Hannah Fearman, I think is her name. That's still that whole "I like you." That's still that freaking. Anytime I hear somebody say "I like you," like it actually rings in my head. It's really weird. But this was done subtly with, again, terrific performances, but also great atmosphere. They earn the jump scares. There are jump scares in this, and there are things that go bump in the night, but they earn it. And I will say that this is a movie that you don't need to see in theaters. I mean, I liked that I went and saw it in theaters because I've only seen A Quiet Place Part 2 since theaters shut down in my area in March of last year. And even though they've been open for a while, I've been picking and choosing what I go watch. But the Night House has great atmosphere to it, and when it arrives at its conclusion, you're like, oh, okay, holy shit. I mean, I see exactly why they did what they did. And again, had this not had Rebecca Hall and had not had really good atmosphere, this would have been a made-for-cable movie. Now, it could have been bought by Netflix or Hulu, and you could have watched it at home, and you wouldn't have missed anything. It's not necessarily a theatrical experience, but it is very much worth watching. So if it's in your area, I absolutely say to go watch it, but you can wait for streaming, but it is a movie worth watching. Now, I'm going to get into spoilers here for a little bit, so I'm just letting you know. Do go watch this movie. Spoilers, 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 spoilers. Okay, so I talked about the loss. Her husband, Owen, committed suicide. She doesn't know why, so he basically said, bye, bye, Beth. Bye, bye, happiness. Hello, loneliness. It's Owen, your guy, in the Night House. Bye-bye. Sorry, that song just kept ringing in my head as I was driving home with my best friend. I was like, fuck it, I need to put it in the review. But obviously, not seeing the signs and everything and not understanding this, like what the hell's going on. So she investigates this stuff. She finds books on the occult and, oh my God, what's going on here? She finds this weird house built in the woods that was like a project that her husband Owen was working on. Like, why in the world would there be a house out here? Why would Mel lie about there not being anything out there because it's on county land? Maybe that's why he had to abandon it. Or there was a reason why it was out there. Well, there are a few things that are a little bit like kind of left up to the imagination, but Beth finds out more about this and discovers pictures that were on his social media of women that sort of look like her, but aren't her. Now, why in the world would he do this? Why would he be so secretive about it? In these occult books, she finds a statue. It's got a whole bunch of pins sticking in and everything, and it's all bent back like this. Like I can't do it like that because I would hurt myself. But has weird pins in it. What the hell's going on? Oh, it's something to trick a demonic presence or trick something. Like, why the hell would you need to trick something? Did he summon something? Does he have something from his past? It turns out that Beth actually had an experience, in a car crash, and she tells her friend Claire this a little bit later, where she died for 4 minutes. It turns out this presence is Death. Death got a hold of her. She came back. Death wants her again. And this is told through some, pretty good bumps in the night and stuff like that and everything. And Rebecca Hall, once again, commanding presence. Very, very good stuff. But it's told with a good amount of subtlety, and when it finally ramps up on what's going on, you're like, holy shit, how I never expected that. She does discover in this in this other house, this, night house out in the woods, that there are all these bodies down there that are wrapped. It turns out he was finding various other women that sort of look like her to trick this demon, hence the whole tricking thing. Now, that's still, but he was trying to do it for the person he loved. Still doesn't excuse the fact he was murdering people. That was one thing that I think that they kind of just glossed over, where it's like, oh yeah, he was a good guy. No, he wasn't. He was fucking murdering people to save people he loves. I mean, yeah, how far would you go to save somebody you love? I don't know if I would go around murdering people like crazy. Anyway, don't murder people. It's kind of bad. But she eventually does end up confronting this, confronting Death that takes the form of Owen, and it turns out that he had basically been killing these women and stuff like that. No, maybe it was a demon doing this, or maybe it was Owen just, becoming a monster and just, trying to do this, but also trying to be the husband for his wife. There are a few, ways you could interpret this stuff. The movie does, give you the ultimate interpretation, but it also allows you to come up with your own conclusions. So eventually, there's a thing at the end where he had killed himself on a boat. Well, they're floating on a boat, and it's this mirror thing where she goes through this mirror and ends up in this reverse house and sees other people being murdered, the women that look like her, and she's in a boat suddenly. Because after she gets all bent back like crazy, like that statue, she's in the boat with Death as a form of Owen. And basically she has the gun that he has and says, well, there's nothing there and stuff like that, but, you don't have to worry anymore. So we cut then to Claire and Mel trying to save her because she's about to shoot herself, but this is in the daytime. And they manage to get her back. Proof that you can come back and you shouldn't do that. It's never the answer. And I'm not knocking anybody for it, but it's never the answer. They rescue her, and that was basically the movie right there. It ends up ending, and that's pretty much it. She gets saved. She did not, go with death and everything, but it was really haunting. It was really well done. I don't know if it is necessarily my favorite movie of the year, but I gotta say, as far as something that was anchored by great performances and used with subtlety and stuff like that, it gets an A minus because it is really good. The strength of the performances, the atmosphere, and stuff like that really just make this thing fucking great. So A minus. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.